Hey guys, I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to my YouTube channel where today we're actually going to be breaking down some races I had with Max Verstappen on iRacing. Now you've probably heard of iRacing if you're at all into sim racing because it's growing massively, especially during this whole situation. I nearly said the word that would have got me demonetized. But either way, it's growing fast and I've been extremely fortunate to come face to face and head to head with one of the most renowned F1 drivers on the current grid. So let's get right into it. Let's see what goes on. Let's have a look at these races and check out what happened. Welcome to the first race, which is going to be a straight up sprint between Max and I, who's currently actually on his Jos Verstappen account, which is his Smurf account using his dad's name, but it's his way of not losing his main account, which is called Max Verstappen, any rating. But it is him, it's exactly the same, it's just a way to get around the rating system. And this is the first bit of the process when you come up against Max in an official race on this sim. It's the outlap. And now the outlap is really quite exciting. It builds tension. You're behind the safety car, and especially if you have a good qualification and you're next to Max on the on the outlap, it's quite cool. And I was driving in virtual reality as well, and as this was the first time I'd ever seen him on the game, I just found it surreal to think that whilst being in quarantine I was able to just be racing up against this Formula One star, which is, I think it's testament to the power of sim racing. But anyway, let's begin the race and let's start looking at what kind of tricks this guy has. What makes him so good and what will he have learned on his time on the sim to this point. And so we're going to start to break that down now. So Max has the inside and he's also pole position, which means he gets to control the restart. And you can really see here, this is his first main tactic. He really backs people up so slowly off the start and then bombs it to full power. And that's his way of getting the biggest lead and advantage over everyone else, because presumably that strategy is just allows him to build up the biggest gap he possibly can off the restart, which he can dictate. And it really paid off, and as you can see, he's already pulled quite a significant gap over me and all the cars behind, as you can see in my little rear view camera. And it's testament again to the little strategies and that he will be unleashing. But also on iRacing, it's very similar to real life in that tyre temperatures and what you're doing with your tyres are very similar to that of real life. And obviously Max is a Formula One driver. He knows what to do with tyres, and immediately when I was racing him, I noticed that he was able to get his tyres up to temperature and to keep them at their grippiest level immediately. And he was able, as you can see, to gap quite quickly off the beginning by simply getting his tyres up to temperature very quickly and capitalising on it in a way that I wasn't so experienced on. And I found that that was where I lost most of my time to him. And as we actually get on board now with Max, you can see his driving style is quite forceful, quite aggressive, but also extremely precise and controlled. Like if you look up here up the hill, you can see all that lot, but then he just catches it, and the net movement of the car is so slight and controlled that you wouldn't even notice that he had that moment at all going up the hill. We skip on a tiny bit. This is at the very beginning of lap 2. We skipped out a few corners since the last shot from on board Max, but back on board with us, and you can see the sort of precision and how, this is a simple track anyway, to be fair. Like, it's a simple track, not many corners, big cars which are quite hard to control, but once you tame them it's not too bad. But it's just like, when I was driving, I didn't drive in a way where I felt like there was any real mistake at all. This was actually the fastest run I think I did, at this point, I had ever done. So I was driving well, but as you can see, we'll just flick through here and you can see Max's car just out ahead. You can see that very slightly he just pips me, basically. It was not too bad considering my experience on this game compared to his. But we skip on now. As you can see, we flicked through all the laps. You can see Max, who's just that car out in front of us now, going around that left-hander. He just manages to get what was, by the end, a 3.6 second lead. And that's it. That is the difference. Bear in mind, Max is one of the best people in the world at this game. That's all that he could find. But it's also a very significant chunk of time considering that, you know, I really wasn't driving too bad at all. But on board again with Max now, we're skipping very late on in the race just because at the end of the day, the race is kind of status quo from this point onward. And he ended up managing, as I said, to win the race in the end by 3.6 seconds in a straight fight. Considering his experience, though, that was actually something I was quite happy with. But let's move on and let's check out a different race that isn't so straightforward and see how we get on in that. Now here we are, I'm P2 again on the front row with Max, but this race is seriously exciting actually, because so much happens in it. But it's also thanks to the car behind. Now I didn't realise this at the time, but a quick Google search revealed that the guy behind, a guy called Jonas Lapalainen, is also a Finnish racing driver. So I'm surrounded by them here, this guy here, and straight away Max does his restart, and straight away I have this other racing driver up my inside through turn 1, going side by side all the way through, and it's absolutely insane stuff here under so much pressure right from the off. And you can just see that luckily he wasn't able to make it in the end. He wasn't able to make anything out of that, but Max immediately has been able to gap me a little bit off the start here. And it's going to be so important to try and build up that gap so that I don't come under that kind of pressure too often this race. As, you know, I want to be racing Max and trying to go for that win rather than holding on to the second as I am so far in this race. Now we're actually one lap ahead, or we've kind of jumped exactly a lap forward, but you can see that Jonas is still right in our rear view camera. That's all we can see right now. And I tell you this much, that when you're trying to drive on the edge, it becomes a whole lot harder whenever you look down in your little rear view camera, there's just a massive beamer just in the way. You can't see anything apart from the front of his car. And it puts the pressure up, but it also lets me know that he's there, and also prepares me to, you know, get ready with any kind of defensive maneuvers I might need to pull off. But it's seriously close here up at the front, and it's just a matter now of trying to hold on as much as possible to that pace without letting Max get away in the lead. And you can just see how close it is. Even Max's gap to us isn't that large. Like, I reckon we're probably just about in the slipstream range, only about a second away, maybe a tiny bit more. But, you know, my biggest concern right now is not, unfortunately, of going for the win. It's of just retaining the lead to Jonas behind, who is extremely quick. I mean, as you can tell, like, he's just all over me. And I'm sure slipstream will be aiding him up all the straights and enabling him to keep with me. But regardless, you know, this is not ideal. I want him to make a mistake. I want him to go away, basically, because he's too close for my comfort whatsoever. And it's only a matter of time until he inevitably is going to go for a move if he stays at this range. And unfortunately, I think I can smell a move coming on. As Jonas is in the slipstream, he pulls to the inside and he gets on the brakes very, very late indeed. And there's a bit of contact, and that's me off into the grass, which is not ideal whatsoever. I lost out massively, but this is good news for content, because now I am going to be fighting through the field, through this high class field. Bear in mind, this is the top split in Iracing, so all these guys are extremely talented at this game. And it's going to be a very interesting fight now to see how much we can recover our position and try and get back up to where we were before. But I think it's going to be very, very tough to get all the way up to second. But there's definite potential here to gain, as we're already eyeing up the cars ahead. They're not quite on the same pace that we were up at the front. But of course, dirty air and things like that are going to make it quite a lot harder to gain on these guys up ahead. And we've now skipped on to the end of the lap that we were just watching, and you can see that we're still right on the back of the car ahead, not quite able to make a move, but we're going to try something into turn 1, try our luck basically. And you can see how close we're getting to the back of them. Like, the bonnet sticks out quite a long way in this car, and so we must have probably touched him through that corner. But as we come through, we've still got the black beamer on our rear, just all over us, and we're in a mega train at the moment. Basically, we've got no room for error whatsoever. And with that, we end up actually entering quite a frustrating stage of this race, where we had so much pace, but because of the nature of the train that we were in, we were still coming under so much pressure from the rear that we weren't really able to make the progress up on the cars ahead that we would have wanted. And this is really shown here as we get a tiny bit of grass on the exit just there. Not too big of a deal. But then the car behind goes for a move up the inside, and it's just a kind of feint. There wasn't really any room there. Tried to create a bit of room on the second half of that corner, but ultimately it wasn't there. But with that, it's just very difficult to get a gap over the cars ahead, and that continues again on the lap after, where once again slipstream for the car behind comes into effect as we go through the first corner here at Lime Rock. And there's also a massive lockup, which actually nearly puts me off into the gravel as well, but it didn't quite, as then the car behind actually tapped us and lost it, which was quite lucky, because it meant that basically we were no longer under pressure, so we could really move on and continue our race with our eyes just forward instead of looking behind, which is lucky, because you can actually see that just that little bit of battling has really taken the cars ahead out of reach, and we're going to have to do some serious work to catch back up. Now, the gap ahead is about 2 seconds, and 2 seconds around this track, I mean, you saw in the first race, Max was only able to pull 3 and a bit across the entire race, so we're going to need some quite, some luck to help us. And if you look ahead, I think we've just had that luck that we needed, as a red car goes off into the grass, I believe, on their own accord. But that means that now there's someone from further up the field that's come down, and they're now going to be able to apply some pressure themselves, which will drag the cars ahead back into our kind of striking range, which is a massive positive. As you can see, the red beamer up ahead, the red and white beamer up ahead, is now searching for any kind of gap it can get over the car that we've been chasing down ever since that incident on the third lap or so with Jonas up at the front. But it's getting really heated now, and you can really see that the gap is visually coming down just so quickly, and it's getting very heated, in fact, actually, if you look ahead, as the cars are side by side. Now they're coming into the final corner, we're right on their rear, and there's a gap that's opened up on the inside, which has allowed us to the inside of the car we've been chasing down. And this is going to be a super sketchy move. You can see just how close we are. It's unbelievably close. As we go into turn 1, I get nicely on the brakes. I just want to be careful here and make sure that I don't do anything too silly, hit anyone, because you can see just how easy it is to hit, leaving millimeters to the car inside. And I'm going to try and hold it around the outside through this long right-hander. That allows us the inside for this next right-hander, and we have managed the pass. And if you look in the rear view camera, the car that we overtook actually got a little touch of grass, which has allowed us a nice and easy gap, and that is us up into P6, I believe, at this stage of the race. But there isn't long left of the race, though, only 1 or 2 laps remaining, so it's going to be a challenge to get up to the car ahead. But it's also just testament to how fast everyone in this lobby is, as we qualified second, but it's only about a 10th a lap difference, if that, over the cars behind. It's so close and so tight that it's very hard to make up any time on this track. And that brings us quite smoothly to the final lap of this race, as we come through actually the final corner just before we get the white flag. Iracing, so it presents the white flag so cool, as you can see from this little shot, the little man waving the white flag across the pit lane, as across the finish line even. But as we check in on ourselves, we might as well go up to the front and have a look at what Max is doing. And predictably, he is pretty much just on his own, with Jonas just a bit behind. But basically, the gap since our incident is pretty much the same as it was. And yeah, he takes another P1, which is quite good. But I can assure you that his race wasn't quite as exciting as mine, as he flashes his lights a little bit over the line. And we can also check up on ourselves, as we actually catch right up to the back of the white and red beamer, but not quite enough to overtake, as we cross the line to finish in P6 or P5. I don't really know. It's not really about the final position, though, more about the action, as that concludes it. But yeah, guys, I really hope you enjoyed my first iRacing video. It was actually surprisingly enjoyable to make. I really am impressed by the amount of resources I have at my hands with iRacing. It's really good in terms of the replay. Next time I'll try and get more POV stuff when it actually happens, maybe live commentary, who knows. But yeah, thanks a lot for watching, and if you enjoyed, a like rating is massively appreciated. But either way, I'll catch you soon, and see you next time.